What is up, everybody, and welcome back to On the Glass Podcast. I am your host, Dakota LeBlanc, and this is episode number 5, top 10 small forwards of all time. Before we get into it, I hope y'all are all having a wonderful day or night whenever you're checking this out. Who knows? Once again, quarantine has completely fucked my small resemblance of a sleep schedule, and I'm recording this at 3 a.m. So I didn't go to bed till like 9:30 in the morning yesterday. So thanks coronavirus, you fucked my small resemblance of a sleep schedule. Episode number 5 gonna be top 10 small forwards. Plan to knock out power forwards and centers in the next coming weeks. I do got an online summer class that starts Monday, so that I don't know if I'll end up doing a double upload next week and give y'all 2 or what, or if I'll take a week off or 2, because I need to make sure I focus on that class. But regardless, I plan on getting you the rest of these top 10 lists, and then we'll move on to something else. I'll probably talk about that later in the podcast of ideas that I'm thinking about doing, and then y'all can let me know down in the comments. But go ahead and get into the list here. First off, this week I'm going to start out with a couple people that missed the cut. I didn't do this in my last 2 videos, but I figured, because I feel like the back end of this small forwards list is kind of up for debate, kind of like the ones and the twos. I know I got a comment on my point guard video the other day talking about a guy that wasn't in there, and I gave an explanation. So if you think one of these guys is more deserving of the 10 spot or 9 spot or wherever you have them, let me know, comment. I'm more willing to discuss with you and try to give you a more in-depth reason of why I chose someone over another guy. But so the first guy that kind of missed the cut was James Worthy. He was a phenomenal player for that Lakers team. He even won a Finals MVP, but the lack of personal accolades like All-NBA teams kind of hurt him in my case. So the guys I have in front of them have a good combination of both. Most of them do. Another guy that missed the cut is Dominique Wilkins, and I kind of talked about this because originally I had him on my list, but then I ended up taking him out. And I'll go into that too, because my 10th guy is pretty debatable, I guess. Another guy, the final 3 guys that missed the cut, or I'm going to say who missed the cut, is Rick Barry, Grant Hill, Chris Mullin. All phenomenal players, and it's no disrespect to them. They're still great. They're still top 15 point or power forwards or whatever. Though they're still great guys. And there's a lot of guys in the league now that I think can make a run and get into that and get into conversations like these. But those are just a few guys that missed the cut. Moving on to number 10, and like I said earlier, I feel this guy has become extremely disrespected over the past year or 2, really. These past few seasons haven't been very generous to him, and I don't understand why. But at number 10, I got Carmelo Anthony. He's a 10-time All-Star, 6-time All-NBA. He was second team 2 times, third team 4 times. And he is 17th all-time in points at 26,314. And like I said, it was really close between him, Worthy, and Wilkins. I kind of debated on them for a few days on who I should have in this 10 spot. Like I said, Worthy didn't have the personal accolades, although he had the rings. And Wilkins had, pretty much equal accolades, but Carmelo had slightly more postseason success, even though either of them weren't successful in the playoffs. And like I said, Melo had the best postseason success out of him and Wilkins, I guess. Melo made it to the Western Conference Finals in 08-09, where he lost to the Lakers. And if my research serves me correct, I don't think Wilkins ever made the conference finals, which I could be wrong, so don't take my word on that, but I'm pretty sure Wilkins never made the conference finals. But yeah, like I was saying, I feel like Melo's become really disrespected over these past couple years just because of the it not working out in OKC and Houston. People just assume that he's not very good. But Carmelo in Denver and New York was MVP candidates, perennial All Star, constantly in the, well, I wouldn't say in the back half of that New York stretch, but he was in the playoffs for most of the years, I guess. But yeah, I mean, you never could really get over the hump. And I don't really blame the New York situation on him because I mean he didn't. I mean he had a few good teams, but towards the back end of those years, I mean those teams were not very good. But they still found a way to make the playoffs, and I contribute that success to Carmelo Anthony. So main takeaway from that is can we please stop disrespecting Carmelo Anthony like he is not good. Melo is one of the greats, and he's up there in the all-time great scoring conversation. Carmelo's great. But moving on to number 9. And I didn't really know where to rank this player because he almost did not make my top 10 list, but his accolades were kind of too good to leave him off. But yeah, so number 9, I got Elgin Baylor. He was a 11-time All-Star, 10-time All-NBA. He was first team all 10 times. He's the 1958-1959 Rookie of the Year, and he is 30th in all-time scoring with 23,149 points. And my biggest gripe against Elgin is the era he played in. Most consider him, like a top 25 player even. But I just can't give him that ranking because I feel like he truly didn't dominate a weaker era like he should have. And the biggest gripe is he never won a championship. He was 0-8 in the finals. But the reason I ended up putting him on the list because like I said, I originally didn't have him or didn't want to put him on the list. But I went back and looked and see who he played in the finals. I mean, he was playing those Bill Russell Celtics team that have Havlicek, Russell, all like that stacked ass fucking Celtics team that won like 11 straight or some shit or 8 straight or whatever that record was. So I mean I had to cut him a little slack because that Celtics team was just fucking stacked. But he played with West and Chamberlain, and I feel like that team should have definitely got a title out of. Yeah, so that's why I gave him a slight penalty there, that he didn't really dominate an era the way he was or should have. But regardless, he's still one of the all-time greats. And had he won a title or two, he's probably higher on this list. But just because he's 0-8 in the finals and he kind of didn't quotation mark dominate the era, I have to kind of penalize him there. But moving on to number 8, Paul Pierce. 10-time All-Star, 4-time All-NBA. He was second team 1 time, third team 3 times. He's a 1-time Finals MVP, a 1-time champ, and he's 15th in all-time points at 26,397. And I feel like, for the most part, Celtics fans kind of overrate Paul Pierce for whatever reasons. Paul Pierce is good, but the lack of the All-NBAs hurt. He only had 4, which is kind of concerning. And had he not won the finals and the finals MVP, he probably isn't on my list. Paul Pierce is still super good, still a super good player, but I feel like he's slightly overrated in a sense. And I don't know for what reason. I mean, he was still really, really good, but I feel like he is slightly overrated by most people, and I would say a lot of those people are Celtics fans, but, I get it. I wouldn't really say it's biased, but, I mean, that's probably a lot of Celtics fans' favorite players growing up, because, I mean, he was kind of, I guess, almost that center head of those Celtics teams in the 2000s, so, I mean, I get it, but, Yeah, like I said, if he doesn't win the finals MVP, he's probably not on my list just because the lack of rings hurt and all NBAs hurt. I mean, he's a 10-time All Star, which is great, but I think all NBAs are more important per se. But yeah, still, Paul Pierce, super great player. He's nicknamed the Truth. He also shit himself in the finals, so there's that. But Paul Pierce, still one of the greats. Moving on to number 7. We're kind of blowing through these here today. Number 7. This one's going to catch some people off guard, but that's just because y'all are haters. Number 7, Kawhi Leonard. Let's see, let me pull up his stats real quick. 4-time All-Star, 3-time All-NBA. He's first team 2 times, second team 1 time. He's 5-time All-Defense, first team 3 times, second team 2 times. He's a 2-time DPOY, 2-time Finals MVP, and a 2-time champ. And let me give you, my reasoning behind Kawhi Leonard at 7. What he has accomplished through 9 seasons is pretty fucking elite. 2 Finals MVPs, 2 DPOYs, 2 championships. And had he been able to stay healthy for a majority of those other seasons, I think he probably has more All-Stars and All-NBAs and shit like that. But what also boosted Kawhi Leonard for me, in my opinion, is the whole situation last year. Played like 5 games for the Spurs. I believe, what was it, 2017, 2018. Traded in the offseason to Toronto where he did not want to go. He wanted to go back home to LA. But he was traded to Toronto. He was in a situation that he did not want to be in with a team he did not want to be on. And he exceeded all expectations for him. The last season's playoffs were one of the most incredible performances in the playoffs I've ever seen. Obviously, 2018 Bron, the year before that, Bron that Bron performance is up there. There's a lot of other great performances, but that Kawhi playoffs last year was fucking incredible. I mean, he had one of the most iconic shot, or gonna be one of the most iconic shots in NBA history. I mean, that shot's gonna be fucking legendary. He won one of the newest teams in the NBA their first championship. Yeah, Kawhi was incredible last season. But my biggest gripe for Kawhi is he needs to stay healthy and or play games. Obviously he's kind of been heavy on the load management thing these past 3 years. Granted, obviously health is the most important thing. If you need to rest. But he has a very strong case already to be one of the all-time greats if he can continue to play games. I mean, he's going to miss, all NBA teams and shit like that because he's just not playing enough games. Now, if he can get you 70 games a season, then yeah, he's gonna rack up all NBAs and all stars and all defensive teams. I mean, he's one of the best defenders to probably ever going to play the game. He's up there with the Pippins and the Rodmans and Ben Wallaces of the world. I mean, he's really good. But I need him to stay healthy and play more games. But like I said, health's the most important thing. If some nights he just can't go, and the whole load management thing where they're trying to prevent injuries, I get it. But yeah, I need to see Kawhi more. Kawhi's probably one of my favorite players in the league right now. I love Kawhi. Love his game. Moving on to number 6, Scottie Pippen. 7-time All-Star, 7-time All-NBA. He's first team 3 times, second team 2 times, third team 2 times. He's 10-time All-Defense. He was first team 8 times and second team 2 times. He's a 6-time champ, and he's 6th in all-time steals at 2,307. From here on out, most every one of these guys I'm about to name, after including Scottie Pippen, were all on my top 25 list. So these are top 25 players in my opinion. But instead of explaining why I have these guys here, I'm going to probably give more of I guess, gripes at this point, because I mean a lot of these guys, like, their accolades kind of speak for themselves. But biggest gripe on Scottie Pippen is lack of success without Mike. Clearly, those 2 years that Mike took off, they weren't the greatest. And then he went to Houston and Portland, where obviously he was a little bit older, but still wasn't the Scottie we've seen with Mike. And one of my points that lead into that is, probably not the same player had he not been drafted by Chicago. I'm not saying Scottie's a system player, because I think he would have been good in the league regardless, but I don't know if he would have been as great. Kind of like one of the first point forwards that kind of like handled the ball, passed. He was an incredible defense, one of the greatest defenders ever. But I think him playing with Mike and being put in that position in Chicago, I think it incredibly helped Scottie Pippen become who he became. And like I said, that's not a gripe against him. Well, it is a gripe against him. I don't know why I said that, but I think he would still been very good had he not went to Chicago. But obviously, I don't think he would have had 6 championships because he'd been playing against Mike. But I think he probably would still have some All-Stars and some All-NBAs. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see him in, per se, his prime outside of Chicago. But by the time he had went to Houston and Portland, I mean, he was pretty done. Like in the Jordan doc in fucking, what was it, 97, 98, his back was all fucked up in the finals. So I imagine like that back injury was probably very chronic throughout his later years. So obviously Scottie Pippen in Houston in 99 or 98, 99, and I believe 2000. I think he spent 2 years there. Was not the same Chicago Scottie Pippen, and then obviously when he went to Portland, he still just wasn't the same Scottie. But regardless, Scottie Pippen's still one of the greatest defenders to ever play, and he's still one of the great point forwards. Moving on into the top 5 now. At 5, I have a guy that is maybe slept on in a sense. At 5, I got John Havlicek. He's a 13-time All-Star, 11-time All-NBA. He was first team 4 times, second team 7 times. He was 8-time All-Defense. He was first team 5 times, second team 3 times. He's the 1973-74 Finals MVP, and he's the 8-time champ. Yeah, like I was saying, I think he's extremely underrated and maybe even forgotten in a sense. But I think that is the case because the era. Obviously, he played in the late 60s and early 70s. So a lot of people that I guess are big in the media right now weren't really around or remember much about that era if they are, but and it was also probably because he was hidden in Bill Russell's shadow. Bill Russell was dominating the 60s and 70s. Bill Russell was truly dominant, and that led back to Elgin Baylor and him going 0-8 in finals. I mean, he was going up against Havlicek and Bill Russell, and these two guys were just fucking dominating the era. But also, in that sense, I think Havlicek could be even higher, but, I tend to give out penalties for if you play in a weaker era. And also, this kind of goes back into the Scottie thing. We don't know if John Havlicek would have been better or worse without Bill Russell on his team. I think it obviously helped because people had to pay so much attention to Bill Russell. But, be interesting to see Havlicek on a different team, even though I think it'd be a little bit different in Scottie's situation because Scottie played in the 90s and it was starting to transition into tougher and tougher eras. But, Havlicek regardless, 13-time All-Star, 11-time All-NBA, that's impressive by itself. And 8 championships, it's fucking ridiculous. Granted, like I said, we don't know how much of that was based on Bill Russell's success, but it was kind of different in this case because he was also a 13-time All-Star and 11-time All-NBA. So, obviously he was putting up good enough numbers and, obviously playing well enough to be an All-NBA guy every year or almost every year of his career. and be an all-star almost every year of his career. And he was a great defender. So you have to give him credit where credit's due. And I think John Havlicek is definitely underrated in a large sense because people just don't really pay attention to the 70s. Which, I mean, I can't really fault them because that era was weak. But, regardless, sometimes you just got to give credit where credit's due. Moving on to number 4. At 4, I got Julius Erving. He's a 16-time All-Star, 7-time All-NBA. He was first team 5 times, second team 2 times. He was 1-time All-Defense. He was the first team that year. He's a 1-time MVP and a 1-time champ. He made the All-Star every year of his career, which that alone is pretty impressive. I don't know how many people have done that. I probably should have looked into that, but I mean that's impressive right there. Coming into the league as an All-Star is crazy. Not many rookies make the All-Star game. But in my opinion, I know some people disagree with this, but playing in the ABA hurts him. It's not like the ABA was bad, but I just don't think it was the NBA per se, like talent-wise. I mean, obviously it was still organized basketball, and there were still people in the league that were great. I mean, a lot of great players from that time played in the ABA and went over to the NBA. But I think what still ranked him so high for me is he still, when he did make the transition to the NBA, he was still dominating. It's not like his numbers dipped. I mean, I think they took a slight dip, but it wasn't anything like crazy. Like his success can be contributed to just because he played in the ABA. Like Julius Erving is still super good when he got to the NBA. But I mean, obviously he was a 3-time ABA MVP. He's only 1-time MVP champion, which that is, you can just credit that to a deeper talent, I guess, in the NBA. And he was also a 2-time ABA champion, and he was only a 1-time NBA champion. And I was actually looking at the roster, and Moses Malone got the Finals MVP for that championship. So, I mean, that just shows you that I think he got the Finals MVPs in the ABA, but I mean, Moses is extremely good. Moses is one of the all-time greats. So, just shows you how much of a talent upgrade there was there. But yeah, moving on to the top 3. You probably already know the top 3. But yeah, at 3, I got Kevin Durant. 10-time All-Star, 9-time All-NBA. He was first team 6 times, second team 3 times. He was the 2007-2008 Rookie of the Year, the 2013-2014 MVP. He's a 2 times Final MVP and a 2-time champion. And KD's one of the greatest scorers of all time. And he has a chance at being a top 10 player of all time. But in my opinion, and I know a lot of people are going to disagree, but a lot of people probably feel the same way as me, but I think he needs to prove to me that he can win a ring without a 73-win team. I know people don't like the term having a ring having an asterisk, but I think some people tend to go overboard with asterisks. I think his 2 rings are probably the only one of the few rings that have an asterisk next to it. Just because you left your team after blowing a 3-1 lead. The team that drafted you, you've been there for what, 8 seasons, 7 seasons, something like that. You left them, joined a 73-9 Warriors team, and and you got your 2 rings, but you're also playing with 3 Hall of Famers already, and you beat up on some Cavs teams that were LeBron James and a bunch of dudes, especially that last finals. That finals was rough to watch. But yeah, regardless of the Warriors stint, KD was still on track to become one of the greats. Obviously, we don't know if he would have won a ring in OKC if he stayed. It'd have been cool to see him and Russ win a ring together. Obviously, that situation kind of, I wouldn't say destroyed that friendship, but definitely harmed it in a way. I think they've somewhat made amends, but yeah, I would have liked to see him be good and win a ring for OKC. but sometimes you got to make business moves, and that was definitely a business move. Moving on to the Brooklyn side of it, I hope he does get healthy. I mean, obviously, you don't want to see an all-time great like that go down with such a serious injury. And I hope he comes back, and I hope he does win a ring in Brooklyn, because a lot of people don't like KD anymore just because of that. And I can say I definitely hated KD in Golden State, but I mean I still enjoyed watching him play. I mean his game is so smooth. Like I said, he's one of the greatest scorers of all time. If in my opinion, if not one of the greatest, or the greatest, he's up there. He's a 7-footer. He's got a guard handle and shoot like 40% from three. He's insane. So, I mean, if he doesn't end up winning a ring in Brooklyn, hopefully he can go somewhere else and still prove that he can be that guy. But yeah, as of right now, he's only 3. He has a chance of being top 10, but like I said, he still needs at least one more ring. Moving on to number 2. Larry Bird. Larry Bird, man. 12-time All-Star, 10-time All-NBA. He was first team 9 times, second team 1 time. He was 3-time All-Defense. He was second team all 3 times. He's a 1979, 1980 Rookie of the Year. He's a 3-time MVP, 2-time Finals MVP, and a 3-time champ. And I think what made Larry so good is that Larry was good coming into the league. Believe it or not, he was dominating college. Him and Magic actually played in the national championship the year before they came into the NBA. So I mean, him and Magic already had that rivalry, and it transferred into the NBA. He battled for the league spotlight with Magic and Mike, or I guess Mike later on in his career, but him and Magic battled for several years. And he got 3 rings and 3 MVPs in the Magic and Mike era. I mean, that's kind of hard to do. Obviously, Magic had the HIV problem where he kind of had to leave in the middle of his prime. But the league was starting to become really, really good in those like mid 80s to late, transferring into the 90s. The league was starting to really get stacked with a lot of great players. I mean, obviously not as stacked as it was even in the 2000s and into this era now, but yeah. And I feel like in Larry Bird's, I guess, case, I feel like people always overrate Larry Bird or underrate. I think people probably think I have him too high on my top 25 list, or he's back too far. If you haven't checked out my top 25 list, go ahead, go check that out. You'll see a lot of these players I talked about today on there. But I see some people have Larry Bird top 5. I have some people have Larry Bird, outside the top 10. So that's why I feel like he's, always overrated or underrated. And that's the thing about these lists is, it's all the person who makes its opinion. As long as they give a valid case, I think you can respect it. I mean, I respect most people's opinions as long as they give a valid argument on why they have a certain person here at a certain place. But I think having Larry Bird outside the top 10 is honestly pretty criminal. Larry Bird's a top 10 player of all time. Larry Bird is arguably one of the greatest scorers of all time. People forget how much of a bucket he was. But yeah, Larry Bird, super incredible. Super, super incredible. And I guess you'll all know who's at number 1. LeBron James, 16-time All-Star, 15-time All-NBA. He's first team 12 times, second team 2 times, third team 1 time. 6-time All-Defense, first team 5 times, second team 1 time. He's a 2003-2004 Rookie of the Year, 4-time MVP, 3 times Finals MVP, and 3-time champ. And I don't really think I need to explain myself here. LeBron's a top 3 player of all time, and we still got I would say another 4 years, hopefully, of LeBron in the league. But I will talk about how he could maybe strengthen his case to be the GOAT. I mean, a lot of people think he is the GOAT. A lot of people don't think he is the GOAT. But I think for him to strengthen his case, he would need to win another ring or 2. Absolutely. I think right now, it's close, but Jordan has the edge. But I think if he was to get 2 more rings, I think that gap could narrow. Also, I would love to see him get the all-time scoring record from Kareem. I think he's like, I think he will get that, honestly. If he continues to score at the rate he is, he'll pass it before he retires. But I think if he got that and another like ring or two, I think his case would be very, very strong for the greatest of all time. But I've started to come to the realization that I just need to enjoy LeBron while we have him. Obviously, the league's in great hands with Giannis and Luka and Trae Young and all these great young players, Ja Morant, Zion. The league's in great hands. But obviously, we don't get all-time greats like this all the time. There's people still in the league that I think can have a great chance. Granted, they stay healthy and they continue to play very well. But yeah. I think we just need to stop the comparisons for right now and just enjoy LeBron while we have him. I know there's a lot of LeBron haters out there, and I get it, but it's just LeBron special, man. Just enjoy him while we got him. Yeah. So there's that top 10 small forwards of all time. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Tell me your top 5 small forwards all time, or tell me who you would change or who you would add to the list, or whatever. Always down to talk and conversate about this. I love interacting with people. But I guess here for a couple minutes, I'm just going to talk about some random things. Talk about the future of the NBA. I've seen that supposedly like the first week of June they're gonna decide whether the NBA is coming back, which is great. Obviously, if they can find a way to keep the players safe and ensure that they can stay healthy and they're not at risk, at large risk, I guess. Obviously, yeah, I'm here. I need live sports back, especially basketball. Basketball is obviously my favorite sport, but I need the league back just so I can watch playoff basketball. Obviously, we don't know how good these guys are going to be. Obviously, after being in the season for, 4 months, 5 months at that time, and then going into is it like month number 3 of quarantine. So, obviously, they may be a little rusty at first. But, yeah, I would love to see the NBA come back. I'm ready for the draft lottery because, my Pistons obviously aren't going to make the playoffs, and I would say they are the worst team in the league right now after the trade deadline. So, obviously, I'm looking forward to the draft lottery and the draft and the off season. I'm looking forward to all that stuff because that's the way our franchise is heading. Or I guess you could say that franchise has kind of always been in that area. But, yeah, so obviously, future podcast, I am going to do a draft special where I'm going to do a mock draft. I do a mock draft every year. But never kind of really had a platform like this. So I actually have a hopefully a big collaboration on the way for the mock draft. That's super exciting. Hopefully that everything works out and I do end up collabing with this guy. But yeah, that's going to be super fun. Obviously, these next 2 weeks, like I was saying earlier, I plan on doing top 10 small or power forwards and top 10 centers these next 2 weeks. Go ahead and knocking out these lists. And then also, I've been doing some 2K rebuilds, rebuilding different teams. So I may end up doing a podcast of that. I'm trying to rebuild all the teams that win a ring. So I may get on here and make a podcast of, and just talking about every team I rebuild and what the roster was and what moves I made and shit like that. So obviously that'd be fun. Let me know if you guys want to see that. I added 6 expansion teams as well. The expansion teams were Las Vegas, Seattle, Vancouver, San Diego, Pittsburgh, and Nashville. Those are the 6 expansion teams I added. So if y'all want me to, obviously I still need to rebuild most of the teams, but if y'all want to see that, let me know. I can get on here and talk about that on a podcast. And yeah, I'm just going to end on the final thoughts. Obviously, the world's opening back up very soon. And hate to get on a kind of a serious note, but guys, just be safe. I don't agree with the USA opening back up so soon. I don't think it's a smart idea, and I think a lot of more people are going to pass away from this. So I recommend just don't go out unless you absolutely have to. I mean, obviously we all want to get back to the normal way of life, but it's just still not safe. I mean, obviously I want to go back out and I'm gonna get back to the gym. I just want to be free to do what I want to do. I'm gonna go shoot basketball or something, but it's still not safe right now. Government obviously doesn't know what is right or wrong, but I'm not gonna get into that because I don't want to make this channel political. But yeah, the coronavirus is still going to last, I would say, another 4 months or so. It's probably going to last the rest of the year. So just if you have to go out, be safe. Try not to go out, even though I know a lot of places are open back up for work and stuff like that. So if you could, just try to avoid going out. And if you do go out, make sure you have protective equipment like face mask, gloves, shit like that. But yeah, that's all I got to talk about today. I'm kind of moving towards these shorter podcasts, especially for the top 10 players of all time, just because I feel like there's not as much to talk about. And hopefully y'all don't get bored by me rambling on those longer videos. But obviously I will have some podcasts that are a little bit longer in the future. But yeah, if you have any future things you want me to talk about, any questions you want to ask or whatever, just comment down below. Yeah, I'll be more than willing to answer any questions in future podcasts and shit like that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I don't think so. But yeah, another 3 a.m. recording session here. If you're new, subscribe. I try to post weekly. So far, I've been able to do that. But like I said, I've got a summer class coming up. So I don't know if I'll be able to stick to that schedule for a couple weeks. But I'll try and get a podcast out at least every week for y'all. Yeah, if you like the video, make sure you like it. Comment down below, like I said, your top 5 small forwards of all time. Or let me know what you'd change about my list. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing y'all next week where we do top 10. I don't know why I said top 5. Top 10 power forwards of all time, because we're moving into my favorite positions of all time, which are power forward and center. I'm always kind of a big man type of guy. But yeah, so this is On the Glass Podcast, and this is episode number 5, and I hope to see y'all back next week. Peace out, guys.